President Trump blasting obnoxious, arrogant, obstructionist, do-nothing Democrats, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, for skipping the White House in a meeting on funding your government. Now, Schumer and Pelosi, they're refusing to do their jobs by not coming to the negotiating table. They've done nothing, which means they now own the possibility of a government shutdown tonight. Also, North Korea, madman dictator Kim Jong-un continues to endanger the entire world. Now with brand new ICBM capability. Are we now on the brink of a serious conflict? President Trump is responding. He's saying the United States will now take care of the situation. North Korea is now precipitating what is a worldwide crisis. At some point, the U.S. and the world will have to stop them. We'll have the details. Plus, all right, why did the New York Times Magazine, they took hundreds and hundreds of pictures, and that's the one they chose of me. You think it might have, all right, stop laughing. You think it might have something to do with liberal bias? Wow, even that's atrocious. All right, but first, tonight's breaking news opening monologue. Lazy, ineffective, do-nothing Democrats Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are refusing to even sit down with President Trump and congressional Republicans to negotiate a budget so we can avoid a government shutdown. Now, before heading to Capitol Hill earlier today to meet with Republicans about the tax bill, President Trump tweeted, quote, meeting with Chuck and Nancy today about keeping the government open and working. The problem is they want illegal immigrants flooding into our country unchecked. They're weak on crime and want to substantially raise taxes. I don't see a deal. Then in typical liberal, predictable, crybaby fashion, well, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, they threw a temper tantrum. It rivals a 3-year-old. Crocodile tears, Chucky Schumer attacked President Trump during the press conference he held today. Watch this.
Mr. President, it's time to stop tweeting and start leading. As long as he remains a destructive force, it would be a waste of everyone's time to continue working with someone who clearly has no interest in coming to an agreement. The President doesn't indicate he's serious. We're not going to sit down just for a photo op. This is serious stuff.
Serious stuff, a waste of time to meet with the president to negotiate a stoppage of a government shutdown? Well, then the president, he responded by talking to the press corps in front of 2 empty chairs where Schumer and Pelosi were supposed to be sitting. Look at this.
Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi did not show up for our meeting today. I'm not really that surprised. We have a lot of differences. They're weak on crime. They're weak on illegal immigration. Before this meeting and before this missile launch, they've been weak on military in terms of spending. They're very hard to get for military. They want it for a lot of other things, but the military is always secondary to them. And the other thing, they want tax increases, and we want major tax decreases. So they decided not to show up. They've been all talk and they've been no action. And now it's even worse. Now it's not even talk.
Can you think of one thing Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer have done to help since Donald Trump was elected? Now, Nancy Pelosi tries to fire back at the president, tweeting out, quote, at real Donald Trump. Well, he now knows that his verbal abuse, you're going to call that verbal abuse, will no longer be tolerated. His empty chair photo op showed he's more interested in stunts than in addressing the needs of the American people. Poor Ryan and McConnell relegated to props. Sad. So Nancy Pelosi is actually saying tonight that President Trump, what he did is a political stunt. What about the fact that she and Schumer, what they pulled today, they wouldn't show up to have a meeting to fund your government? That is the ultimate political stunt. The president's responding by tweeting back after North Korea and their missile launch. It's more important than ever to fund our government and military. Democrats shouldn't hold troop funding hostage for amnesty and illegal immigration. I ran on stopping illegal immigration and won big. They can't threaten a government shutdown to get their demands. Now, what's even more hypocritical is Pelosi and Schumer want everyone to feel sorry for them because President Trump hurt their widow feelings. Now, Pelosi and Schumer forgot all about all the horrible things. We'll remind them tonight that their fellow Democrats and the media have been saying about Donald Trump for 10 months and longer. You may remember this.
His motives and his actions are contemptible, and I will fight every day until he is impeached. Impeach 45.
I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to call for the impeachment of the President of the United States of America.
The president's decision to end DACA was heartless and it was brainless.
We all agree that President Trump's decision to end DACA is a despicable act of political cowardice.
Are we getting closer and closer to the possibility of yet another impeachment process?
After watching the Clinton impeachment, I thought I'd never see another one. But I think we're in impeachment territory now for the first time.
President Trump did a tweet last night and a tweet this morning. Not presidential.
The president's fitness for office is something that is being called into question. I'm very worried about his fitness.
Yeah, really? All those are just examples. They're just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Democrats trashing the president. They do it every day. They've called him every name in the book and then some. And Democrats and their irrational hatred for the president is unlike anything we've ever seen in modern political history. And that's not including the liberal mainstream media that has been trying to destroy President Trump since he launched his campaign. So Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, they can try and play the victim all they want and act like petulant little children all they want in this case, but in reality, they're just feigning moral outrage like they always do. Now, when it comes to negotiating a budget, if Democrats, you want to play games, if you're refusing to even come to the bargaining table, then guess what? You'll own the government shutdown. And from what the president said today, it sounds like he is not going to be backing down to accommodate your ridiculous demands, and he shouldn't back down. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, they're going to try and pressure Republicans to go along with every liberal agenda item from DACA on down. The American people don't want it. They want to blackmail President Trump and the Republicans into literally breaking their campaign promises. That would be stupid. Now, Democrats are also going to try and deploy their government shutdown scare tactics like they always do. The GOP, for once, you shouldn't budge an inch. Let them own it. The government, by the way, never really ends up shutting down, despite the threat, the lies Democrats have been telling over the years. Guess what? If they do have a, quote, government shutdown, Social Security checks, they still go out. The post office still delivers mail. Food stamps, well, that's not impacted. The executive branch, they still operate. The judiciary branch, they function. Congress, they pretty much go on like nothing happened. The only people that are directly impacted are non-essential government employees. And guess what they get? They get a furlough, which means they end up getting a paid vacation because historically, Congress has always retroactively paid their salaries and they got all the free time off. Republicans need to show spine and backbone for once, please, and actually start fighting for the president's agenda and for the forgotten men and women in this country, you know, the people that actually voted you into power. And if Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, they want to go out and cry, they want to suck their thumb in a corner, then so be it. The GOP needs to stop folding under pressure. Start actually keeping your promises. Start leading. Now, the budget is a great place to start, so get to work.
Here with reaction to all of this, Kayleigh McEnany is the RNC spokeswoman, and Robert Zimmerman is the DNC committee member and Democratic strategist, as you know well. Good to see you both tonight. Good to be with you. Robert, you know, how about the empty chairs? Like, what's the big deal? Why can't Pelosi and Schumer show up and come to the meeting and sit at the table and talk?
Well, first of all, they're empty chairs because the president used this morning's tweet to basically lie about Pelosi and Schumer's record and tell them there was no deal to be had.
So why not show up and call them on it?
And show that there was no deal to be had. They were not going to go there and be props. And you look at that scene today at the White House, it looked like the set on The Apprentice.
Doesn't that seem childish to you all around?
Only Donald Trump was behaving like The Apprentice.
It did look like The Apprentice, kind of, except there were a lot of missing chairs. Kayleigh, what do you think?
A lack of leadership.
Yeah, well, Robert wants to say the president lied about Nancy and Chuck. No, he exposed their factual record of failure. The open borders, the crime we've seen go up across American cities, the fact that they raised taxes on the American people with Obamacare. They were upset that he exposed them, and they told the American people all they needed to know today. They will not show up for the American people. Instead, they'll duck out to cater to their far-left friends. The empty chairs told you everything you needed to know. No show Nancy and Duck and Chuck are not going to show up for the American people.
But what you're not making clear, Kayleigh, and what we all know is that Donald Trump and the Republican Congress run the government. They run every branch of government.
So then the Democrats should just go home then, Robert?
No, actually not. What Donald Trump did today was, in fact, increase the Democratic Party's hand and Chuck and Nancy's leverage. Because
How so? Wait, how so?
Because in less than 10 days, the government is going to face a shutdown. You need 60 votes in the Senate to keep the government open, and you'll need Democratic votes in the House because the Freedom Caucus, the Tea Party members, will vote for a government shutdown.
And, Robert,
what Donald Trump did today was put both McConnell and Ryan in a very bad spot, because right now you need to bring the parties together, not try to insult the opposition.
Robert, if you care so much about not shutting down the government, which, by the way, Nancy Pelosi said would take away veteran benefits,
Absolutely
it would deprive children of school lunches or nutritional value. So if you care so much about that, today was the day to show up. You talk about bipartisanship. The DNC talks about it, Nancy Pelosi. Today was the day to have bipartisanship, but instead what we saw was weak, feckless obstructionism and no leadership from your party or your leaders.
Bipartisanship begins with leadership. And when the president's going to lie about the records and insult them, doesn't bring them together, doesn't bring the country together.
You know what? I think people at home look at this and they go, we've seen this charade a million times, right? You know, they go right down to the wire. Everybody pretends like they're going to stand off, and, you know, God forbid they cut any spending. They're going to sign the next funding bill, and it's going to happen. But the problem,
Martha, is it's not a charade. We've faced a government shutdown in the past because of this kind of incompetence that President Trump is demonstrating.
Everybody needs to show up and do their job. Thank you, guys.
Good
to see you both.
Thank you, Martha.